All right, so for week 15, we're in Jeep sales controller.java, and here I added a max length. The trim can have a max length of 30 characters to make sure that the max length does not exceed that. And then we also have the character classes for the trim can only be word or space classes, helps to alleviate any errors there. Now we have fetch Jeep test support. So here we added a sort, so the order of the Jeep doesn't matter. And then in global error handler, here Spring will intercept a no such element exception. It will call this method, and then we'll pass in the exception. This is for bad request. And here is the handler for method argument type mismatch exception. And this exception handler is Spring will intercept a no such element exception. It will call this method and then it will pass in the exception. This is for not found. And then this one right here is for an unknown generic exception. Down here, we have the error.puts, and this builds the actual error message. All right, in Jeep.java, right here, we have the override, the get model PK from Lombok. So we can tell Jackson to ignore it for the test. And this makes order not matter between the two Jeep models, and the test will pass either way. And now in the default Jeep sales DAO, so here fetch Jeeps is gets the model ID and trim level. We created a has map for the model ID and trim level, and we'll return a row mapper. And then down here, we have a Jeep builder that builds all the Jeep info. Default Jeep sales service.java. We applied a transactional annotation for the read-only because nothing will change. And now down here, we throw an exception if Jeep is empty. And then again, we have the sort, so the order doesn't matter. And in fetch Jeep test.java. Let's see. All right, so down here, test that an error message is returned when an unknown trim is applied. So week 15, the 404 error message will return when an invalid trim is applied. So here we have another method, test that an error message is returned when an invalid value is applied. That's a 400 code. And then down here, the parameters for invalid input. When the trim input is invalid, this method is used in the method source annotation for tests that error message is returned when an invalid value is supplied. We nested these. So they all live within each other. And then here, test that that application context extends fetch Jeep test. Here we have mock bean. We added over here, creates this bean as a mock object and puts the bean in the bean registry and places that bean by any name that was there. And now here we have a test that an unplanned error results in a 500 status. And we'll get an error message that's returned. All right, and now I will run the test. And you will see that the test runs screen.